Great Slider.
I'm Phil. I'm Neilden.
I'm Raz.
I'm gonna bust his ass.
I'm Brandon.
Slide jobs by the dozen out here.
Hello, this is Thomas.
Hello.
Pisser.
I'm John.
Sit down the back straightaway for the final time.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
This is Dirty Sliders Podcast. Keep it high, wide, and handsome, but don't jump that cushion.
All right, everybody. Welcome. Well, you can always already see our special guest. We've got Garrett Alberson joining us tonight. We're going to be talking with him, getting insight into his journey in the racing world, where he came from, where he's going, what he's done. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to Thomas.
Welcome in, guys. Glad to have all you here. Super glad to have our guest. Garrett, if you would, introduce yourself. Tell us your backstory, how you got into racing, what you started with, and then kind of your journey on getting to the Lucas Oil Tour and becoming an official Lucas Oil Tour winner.
My name is Garrett Alberson. Pretty sure 35 years old. It gets so hectic I don't even honestly remember. From Las Cruces, New Mexico originally. Started racing super trucks. It was a dirt oval truck class they had over there. They they had a dirt oval truck class over there at the couple of tracks that I grew up at. And, started racing those trucks when I was about 14. I guess like 2004 or something like that. 14, 15, somewhere in there. And originally drove for my dad, just, a couple local guys out of our garage there pretty much. And just had a great time. And my dad raced when I was younger, so I kind of was around it a lot. Some uncles that raced, and just kind of in the blood, I guess. From the time I was tiny, that's all I wanted to do was be around race cars. And for the longest time, I thought I was gonna, go do NASCAR or something like that. I thought I was pretty cool. We won a couple local races. Thought I was gonna, make some cool stuff happen or something. And found out the hard way that just wasn't meant to be for just a regular guy from the desert. Have any money, so. Ended up just sticking around home there, getting to meet some people in the truck class that ended up being really pivotal in the racing deal. The first guy I ever drove for, his name was Rex Porter. The first ride I ever had in the truck class, and we won a bunch of races. And then Dave Deep, the first guy I ever drove a late model for, he was in the truck class as well, and he had an old late model that he'd raced back in the late 80s, early 90s out in Arizona. And I'd worked for him off and on here and there, just at a shop, helping him out and stuff. And this whole car was sitting out in the weeds, like literally just out in the dirt. And he asked me one time if I wanted to help him put it together and go race it in Arizona. I was like, yeah, sure. I didn't have time. I didn't have a job. I was so focused on the race, and then the ride that I had went away because the guy Rex was older and wanted to get out of it. So I didn't have anything going on, so I said, yeah, sure, I'll help you. And he said if 6 days of race, and if I helped him put it together, we'd split the driving on it. And I'd never even touched a late model before, but I always loved them. And come to find out, it was the Wild West Shootout, the first race we ever went to.
Damn.
And we were in way over our head. It was pretty brutal. That's how we got started in the late model deal. And the cars are just so unique and so cool, and it just bit me pretty hard, a late model deal. So just been obsessed with it ever since.
So your first experience at a late model was jumping into a super late at the Wild West?
Yeah. Yeah, the crazy thing was we didn't even know what that race was until we were pulled in at the track. Like we were pulling in at there at Tucson, at USA Raceway, which we'd never been to. And we pull in there, and there's Billy Moyer, Jimmy Marr, Shannon Babb all parked there in a row, and we're like, oh no, what in the world are we? We had no idea. I just thought it was some local race, you know what I mean?
Trial by fire right there.
Yeah, we jumped in with both feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess I'm curious, and how underpowered were you guys on that race?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Well, it started off with a bang, so to speak. We had his old 430 that he had raced back in the day, I think it was originally a Garrett headed iron block motor, and so we didn't know what anybody else had. We just should have 700 horsepower. Something should be all right. And I don't think we had the right carburetor for it. We were trying to run methanol, and I don't think we had a carburetor with proper floats in it or something like that. And this thing burned a piston lap 1 of practice night. And Dave was driving, and he tried to get off the track and ended up getting hit because practice was still under green. And so we blew up and crashed like 2 laps into our practice. And so we ended up missing the first day or two of racing because we went back home. Luckily, Tucson's only about 3.5 hours or so. We went back to the shop, found some guy's modified motor, stuck it in there, and went back to Tucson and ended up racing, I guess, the other 4 nights. And it had leaf springs when we dug it out of the dirt. It had leaf spring mounts and stuff on it. We had to cut all that stuff off and just weld our own 4-bar plates or 4-bar brackets in this thing and just totally winged it on everything. And so it was cobbled together, to say the least.
So that's when you said this late model stuff's for me, huh?
Yeah. Sometimes, like, when you get your butt kicked hard enough, you're like, I gotta figure this out. Like, this is pretty interesting. You either, totally say, no, this is not for me, or like, this is kind of cool. I have to figure out how to not suck at this.
So that first chassis that you ran that Wild West with, was that a house chassis, or is that a name brand chassis?
It was actually a Bullet car, which I think was pretty popular in its day right there.
Wow. So that brings us, you do the Wild West Shootout, and then how do you get in onto the tour for a full series in 2022?
So from there it was kind of a lot of twists and turns, I guess. I drove for Dave Dietz there, primarily in Arizona was where most of the super late model racing was. At the time, there was a series called the Four Corners Late Models up in, Four Corners area, northern New Mexico mostly.
Yeah.
And they wanted to expand their series down south a little bit, and they ended up running some, and they ended up having, kind of by chance, races at the Southern New Mexico Speedway and El Paso Speedway Park, which was our local tracks. They just added them that year. And so we had this race car after Wild West Shootout. We're like, oh, sweet. There's some races now for our car, because really the Las Cruces area hasn't been a late model area ever. So Arizona was really popular for a long time. I think there was a lot of tracks, a lot of competitive guys. But so we got to do a little bit of that, just racing there locally with that Four Corners series. I think the first year we only got to run like 10 times or something like that total. And like broke and wrecked everything you can imagine, just because we were just so green to everything. But we just we kept getting a little bit better. We had a third place run one time that kind of solidified Dave thinking that we could, be late model races a little bit, I guess. And there at the end of the year, we got a couple Masters built cars, some used Masters built cars off of Racing Junk, I think. And then the next year we started racing a little bit more, and then traveling just a little bit further to some more open races. But we didn't really have open motors yet. I had a spec engine, and I think Dave had his F430 got rebuilt, so we it was iron block. It really wasn't a true supermotor. So we were just doing our thing, and then we started winning a couple races here and there, and got a couple aluminum motors, and trying to travel out a little bit more. And through all that, through the Masters deal, we got to know Ronnie Stuckey, now Black Diamond Chassis, but he was originally, or for a long time, he was involved with Masters Built and had his own, like a Masters Built by Stuckey. And we figured that'd be a good route to kind of get some more knowledge and build a relationship with Ronnie. Ended up, I think it was the winter of 2013, maybe. I ended up going and working at Ronnie's for pretty much the whole month of December, just trying to learn and stuff like that, and liked them so much. And they were just building the first like 2 or 3 Black Diamonds. Like when I showed up, I think they were on car 3, and so it was kind of like a got in right when that thing was taking off, and their cars were running so good, and it seemed like kind of on the edge of the leading edge of everything right then. And I thought it'd be a cool opportunity to just go over there and try to work for them some more. Ended up moving over there at the beginning of 2014. Raced for a local guy a little bit that year, not a lot. And then 2015, I got a ride with a local team, Childress Racing, out of Houghton, Louisiana. And guy had nice cars, nice trailer, everything. And we were in mostly like comp cams, Mississippi State Series, and Lucas shows or Outlaw shows whenever they would come nearby. But I don't know, probably 30, 40 races a year, we were still, just trying to get some experience, but didn't have a full-time crew or anything like that. We were just kind of do the best I could. And my goal was as early as I could, as early as I knew what the Lucas Oil Series and basically just like the National Touring Series were. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Like, these late models are so cool and so fast, and I thought that'd be like the neatest thing ever to go, tour on those series, and getting a race against those guys every now and then just lit a fire into me. Like, that's where I want to be at. And so it seemed like I was like I could make the races in that Childress car, and usually finish them or something, but I was always like a 13th to 15th place finisher. It seemed like I was never quite sharp enough to really break into that like top 10 or top 5 against them guys. And so but we could win some regional races every now and then, and felt like I just needed some more experience, just needed more racing. Well, that guy Raymond Childress, he ended up shutting his team down at the end of 2017, and that left me without a ride, and there really wasn't anything in that area. And just so happened that at that time, Ronnie was building his house car team with Earl Pearson for 2018, and I decided to go on the road with him, racing, crewing. He called crew chief, but I'd say probably more of a car chief role. Just kind of keeping up the cars and the truck, and building stuff, and ran 2 years crewing with Earl Pearson, and that solidified it even more that I wanted to do that. Just watching him, and I got to learn a lot about basically, like, I was kind of always an overthinker, thinking that I needed to have my car like dead perfect in order to have a shot to beat these guys, where Earl, he didn't overthink that stuff. He just had confidence in his driving, and as long as the car was close, he'd do the rest. He didn't make too many changes and stuff, and so that really helped my mindset a little bit, where I just need to focus on the driving more than just trying to outwork everybody. And through all that, I got to meet Ken Roberts, working at Ronnie's, building some cars, and then he was looking for somebody that he could call on the phone, kind of have some setup help for his local driver, Jeremiah Hurst at the time. And got to talking to Ken a bunch on the phone, just back and forth, set up stuff all year long. And I told Ken, because we talked so much, I was going to leave Ronnie's team at the end of 19 and try to go driving again, because that was really where my passion was at. I thought that I had something that I could bring to the table if I could just get some laps. And Ken's just such a racer and such a genuine guy. He started looking around up here for rides that I could get into up here, and we got really close on one, and it was right during that COVID, right when COVID cranked up in 2020, and that deal fell through. And then they were fixing to run MLRA their first season with Jeremiah to run for Rookie of the Year, and they had just got their second full-on super late model for a backup car, and they're like, why don't you just come drive this other car some, at least to get you on the track some. So we just I moved up to Dubuque here in Iowa and started driving for Ken, and to give you an idea of how good to drive for Ken is, it all went about as wrong as it could the first couple nights. Driving, we had 2 cars. We really weren't prepared for 2 cars. We didn't have any full-time help. We just all had friends and volunteers, basically. And we show up to Moberly, Missouri for a MLRA race. And we ended up crashing into each other, like, partway through the feature. There was, like, a restart pileup, and we crashed into each other, ripped the carburetor off my car, and, like, both cars just totally wadded up. And I'm like, yep, there goes my ride there. That's probably it. And Ken never blinked an eye. He's just like, yeah, we'll put them back together and go race tomorrow. And we just kept on going. Yeah, it's a race 2020 and 21, 2-car team with Jeremiah Hurst, and really enjoyed it. I enjoyed racing with Jeremiah a ton. He's super competitive. People, probably a lot of people don't even realize or don't know a lot about Jeremiah, but he ended up winning that MLRA championship that first year, his first year race, late model. Just super competitive guy. Really good. He just didn't get the chance to race supers as much as he probably should have, but they ended up parting ways with Ken at the end of 21, and so going into 22, we were planning to race just a ton more super stuff just with me. And Ronnie was really the one that kind of put the bug in his ear to go race Lucas Oil, because at the time, I think Rick Schwally, Lucas director, was calling Ronnie, asking if he knew people that would want to do the Rookie of the Year, because I think at the time they only had one, I think maybe Spencer Hughes or something. And so Ronnie was like, yeah, this would be a perfect opportunity to get in there, just one other guy, you can run for Rookie of the Year. That was never really in the plan with Ken. We were just going to run some summer national stuff here and there, and Ken really didn't have that on the radar, but there was enough incentives here and there to kind of make it look cool. Anyways, by the time we got out on the road and showed up to Brunswick, there ended up being like 5 of us rookies running all together. So it ended up being one of the most competitive rookie classes in years. So it was quite the experience.
Well, just to clarify, you did come out on top on that one, right?
Yeah, we did. That was one of the cooler experiences that I had, and something that, starting where we did and how we did, you would never have guessed that you can go do, win Rookie of the Year or something like that in Lucas Oil. And we had a strong class of guys too. Every one of them could have won it, and it just, I think we were fortunate. We were pretty well prepared. We ended up getting a new to us rig that year that just kind of made life easy, and we had good like well kept cars, and we had Justin Tharp, who's now on the Longhorn House Car team, with his first year full time on the road, and And Justin was a massive help. Just he's the kind of guy to get anything done. And we had him and Jason Curran from St. Louis area come in there. He's got a ton of years experience. And we were just the guys that we had, the equipment that we had. And we had Ronnie's advice, and he was always a phone call away to anything we needed to know to go up and down the road. We just had a really good package, and because I think Dalton Wilson was in there, Spencer Hughes, Ross Robinson, and for a period Ashton Winger was in there too. I think they ended up him and GR ended up parting ways partway through the year, which was kind of a bummer because it was we were having a good battle for the points lead between him and I. But but it was a pretty wild year there.
That's incredible, man. I spent probably 15 years. I lived down in Hobbs, New Mexico, which I don't know if you know where that is, being a Las Cruces guy. But that's where my dad raced and where I got into it. So like you talk about El Paso and whatnot, Four Corners, Farmington, you got Aztec, Cortez kind of in that area. So, yeah, it's really cool to hear that. I think that's part of the reason why, at least for me, I latched on to you as a fan because you're from the same general area that I kind of grew up in. So it's really cool to hear that. So I guess we'll fast forward a little bit here. I do kind of want to hear about your journey at Port Royal this year. Kind of want to hear you talk about that and then what that feeling was like. And I mean, that was the closest win of the season, the closest victory of the season. That was 9,000ths of a second.
That's pretty wild. It's so get to run this Lucas deal starting in 22, and we had some good runs actually. I think in our rookie season we had a couple podiums, so you're like, we could potentially win a race. And then we run all through 23, had a bunch of tough times, ended up switching chassis brands in the middle of the season, which was not ideal for any of us, really. It was just one of those difficult decisions that felt like had to be made, I guess, to just see, what was out there, what was available. That was one of the toughest things I've ever had to do in my life. Ronnie and Terry Stuckey and the whole Black Diamond gang are like family, you know what I mean? Like second family to me. So anyways, you go through 23, bunch of, I don't even think we had a podium in 23. And I think I ended up leading a little bit of a race, Georgetown, Delaware. But it just seemed like every time I could like run up front for a bit, I could win a heat race maybe or something like that. But it seemed I always would drop the ball on the driving end of it or on the setup end of it. Something I just like never break through for that win, and just seemed so elusive. And even the beginning of this year, we kind of the same thing, right up front quite a bit more. Even so this year, once we kind of got our setup going, but it's just like right there, you can't quite get to it, and it just starts eating at you. Like, man, can I even do this? And I get that last little bit. Like I've always felt like I could as a driver, but it just putting it all together is kind of a different deal, I guess. But so we go over there to Port Royal. We had a good run there earlier in the year. At that spring race, we ended up running third. And Port Royal is just a really difficult track. It's just super fast, gets super slick, lane sensitive, just very technical. And I didn't grow up racing on big tracks, big half miles and stuff like that. So the first couple times we went to them, like in 22 and stuff, I felt like a fish out of water. Like I didn't know what I was doing at these big tracks. And I don't know, I guess just over time it started to grow on me a little bit. And just kind of hit everything right that night. Won our heat race. I think we started, in top 5, somewhere in there. track had a little bit of character to it. It was like kind of not like big holes, but it kind of had some ripples here and there, and it was everybody was getting tight and pushing in spots, and it was kind of a tricky track to get around, and the straightaways were still slick, and for some reason we just had a really good balance. I could just drive. That I learned from being around Earl. I think it's one thing that's helped me there is that he just, when his car is good, he tells you that you don't use the brakes very much, which seems kind of counterintuitive, one, when you're getting to the end of the straightaway at like 120 mile an hour or something, but two, like there's so many tracks growing up, you just needed the brake to get the car to work, getting into the corner and stuff. And so it took me forever to kind of shake that habit a little bit. Well, my car was nice and free that night, and I could roll in there Harley without any brakes and kind of run a lane that nobody had at that time. And I don't know, it just all kind of, everything just finally kind of lined up for us. And I think McCready broke early in it, which he would have been tough. So that was part of it that went our way. But then after that, we ended up racing by the rest of them, just clean and green, which was pretty awesome. Devin was getting tight, and I think he ended up clipping the wall. Broke his momentum, but I was pretty close to him already, and that was one of the cool things about it. Also, was Devin, our team and Devin's team were up and down the road together quite a bit and parked by each other quite a bit. So to have it come down to the line like that, photo finished with one of your good friends was pretty special. The whole thing was about as cool as you could think it would be. So.
Well, that's cool, man. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but what was more special, that one or becoming a dad this year? You're kidding. You don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer.
Nah, I really, just the whole year, through and through, the whole year has been so special. Having a super cool team this year. We had RC Whitwell, which I grew up racing with out there in Arizona, came on board and rode with us, and brother-in-law, my wife, raced for us most of the year. Had good people, had good momentum, and then ended up winning some races, and then having our son Weston all in the same year. It was, this whole thing was special. Yeah, it's about as cool as it gets, I feel like.
That's awesome, man. Your whole experience for this whole season, what has been some of the best things, or what were the most memorable things that kind of keeps you going down the road? Because you're racing 60, 70 times a year, not just with Lucas, but you're hitting some of these XR races. I mean, you won a couple MLRA races this year. So, what keeps you going? What keeps you motivated?
I think just wanting to do well. I just have a passion for driving these late models. I don't know what it is about them. Like whenever, just like the other day at Sonoya, we hopped in it. We built a brand new car to go over there and get some laps before the end of the year, and it's all like kind of fresh. Hadn't raced a couple weeks, and you got this car you don't know anything about yet, and we hopped in there and ended up winning the first heat race, and it's just like, I don't know. They just do stuff on the track that I don't think any other car can do, and it's just special. So for sure, just the joy of driving the late model is one of the things that keeps me going. But just trying to get better all the time. That's the cool thing, the tough thing, but the cool thing about this series, or any of the high-end tour and series in late model racing, is just, it's hard to be the best guy. It really is. Like, it just never ends. So just always trying to get better, always chase, always keeps you going.
Well, anytime you hit a track and you're running against somebody like Jonathan Davenport or Bobby Pierce or Ricky Thornton or anyone, pick a name, right? It's, you come out on top. Like you've proven that you were the best that night. That's not your local guys. That is the dudes, especially JD. Been around for many, many, many years.
Yeah. So that's one thing that is definitely cool about the whole thing is, people that don't get to race against them guys, you see them on flow racing or these other races and people that race but haven't raced against some guys. I mean, I think there's good racers everywhere, but it's hard until you race against these guys night in and night out to understand just how smart, how competitive they are. Like it's incredible. Like you can't make mistakes nowadays. Like everybody's so good, and these cars are all so close to it. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the brand new car from Longhorn. So I mean that solidifies that you're sticking with Longhorn for at least another year. And then you go to Sonoya. Sonoya, yeah, I watched that race. Boy, did that track have some character. What was that like?
Yeah, it was interesting. They had just for some reason, no fault of theirs, the timing of the year that they had that race, it seems to get some rain right in that time period. So a couple of years ago, it got way more rain than that, and they still got it in. It was even more hairy than that, but it rained the day before. There was supposed to be a local race mixed with kind of a practice, and they canceled that just to keep laps off the. Well, really, just it was too wet, anyways. But yeah, they worked on that thing all day long, but I think it was just so cool and damp that it was. Yeah, I think it kept peeling open all night long, and there wasn't anything anybody could do about it. Yeah, it was an interesting test for a new car, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I watched the race. Hats off to those track teams. I mean, they tried. There was some lengthy delays, but man, I mean, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? If you don't touch it, they're gonna like, oh my God, why did you not touch it? And then if you touch it and it falls apart again, you're like, oh man, what was the point? But you have to give it to them. They tried their best to give you all the best track that they could. And, I mean, what you got is what you had. And you podiumed both nights, correct?
Well, I ran third the first night. And I was running as high as second the second night, and made some bad decisions on the driving end of it, lane choices and stuff like that, and ended up falling fifth in like one little bobble pretty much. And by then it didn't never rubber, but it was getting like a clean lane in the bottom, and it kind of wasn't as racy after that, so kind of got what we got, ended up fifth, but won both of our heat races and qualified good both nights, so it was a good showing for us.
Yep, absolutely. Guys, I have a couple more questions, but if y'all want to chime in with something, feel free.
Well, I do want to give credit where credit's due, because Thomas called your win at Port Royal the week before, and said so right here on this podcast.
Well, that's pretty sweet.
So
yeah, you knew it way more than I did, because that was not where I thought I would win a race.
Yeah, he conveniently left that out of his story.
Well, okay, so it was I think on episode 13 or 14, like we're a new deal, and episode 3 or 4, we're sitting here, and I mean I bought one of your T-shirts, and I'm sitting here having fun at the race, or I'm sitting here watching and everything, and I told these guys, I said, man, y'all watch out for Garrett. He's going to win one. He's getting close. He is on the cusp. He's going to get one. And then, I'm not kidding, dude, that weekend, you won at Port Royal. And I came in on Monday, the podcast, and I'm standing up with my T-shirt, like, told y'all.
You need to do that more often for him.
I suppose,
sure do.
Yep. So, I do have a couple of other questions. You talked about the MLRA and running that. Of course, you did it this year, and that was part of what got you to the Lucas Oil Big Time Series. But with the recent news of the MLRA dissolving for this next year, do you see that having a increase in your car count for the Lucas Oil Series or the World of Outlaws, because those guys won't have that regional series now? Or what kind of an impact do you think that's going to have?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. I was thinking about it a little bit whenever I first read about that, which is, it's a tough deal. It's a bummer. It's been a special series for this area for such a long time. But it's, Ernie and his family are really great people, and they've, sometimes you just got to do different things, so, don't blame them for that. I'm curious how what's going to take place there, because we've got a ton of really good guys in the Iowa, Illinois, Ibidar River, and Nebraska that can can run good super late model stuff in Missouri, and just this whole kind of, I guess, like Western Midwest region so strong that they're going to go race somewhere. So for sure, it's going to be really interesting to see where people land. There's definitely guys in that series that are capable of running national series. It's just whether they can get the money put together at the right time and the right people for crew and this and that. And that's the main challenge with the touring series, is just putting all the pieces in place. Not so much the race car driving itself. I know plenty of them guys in that series are capable of, being in the race and being competitive. It's just putting all the pieces of the puzzle together to go do it full time.
That's awesome, man. Go ahead, Raz.
So you're racing out of Iowa now?
Technically live in Iowa, in Dubuque, but the shop here that we're in is in Kelowna, Illinois, right close to Davenport, Iowa, in the Quad Cities area.
So you touched on a little bit earlier, is what people don't realize with these touring series is you will go weeks at a time without ever seeing your home shop. You're racing out of the trailer.
All right.
And you're touring with other guys. And I did it for a while with a modified in the Midwest, and it becomes it's kind of a cliche, but it's like a brotherhood. You guys are helping each other out.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody has a rough week, then people get together and help them out. Somebody's shop will be half an hour away. Hey, everybody come over to my shop and do your maintenance and stuff, and it turns into a barbecue and a beer fest and storytelling hour and everything. And people don't realize that about these touring series. That's a big part that I thought was pretty special. Is that something you enjoy as part of touring with Lucas Oil?
Yeah, for sure. It's probably one of the more unique, I guess, like dynamics that you have to navigate, is trying to have friends if you can, to the best of your ability, and not be a guy that people don't want to be around, but at the same time, every one of our jobs is to beat each other. So it's a very strange situation, but the guys in the series navigate it really, really well, and it's been really cool to see how we can run up and down the road racing for money and still, for the most part, all get along pretty good and just go to the next place and do it again. Like, it's kind of a traveling circus in a way, and we're just the carnies, pretty much just trying to keep it all running.
Now, the thing when you started with late models to today, you've kind of been in the period where they've had the most innovation, because late models have changed a ton. With the pivoting 4-link mounts and shock technology and tying down the right front and everything. So the twisted bodies are now the thing that are the big conversation now. Is that something you've enjoyed? Is that innovation? Because you obviously you said you worked on the cars too, so you have a kind of a unique insight on that. And where do you see the next step going? What's the next big innovation in late models?
I really enjoy the technical side of it. I do a lot of the setup stuff, or at least I know the ins and outs of most all of it. Usually do a lot of my spring smashing and shock dynoing and stuff. Not really a shock builder, but I understand them well enough to know what I'm looking at and know what I need to change kind of what I'm after that given night or scenario. And so just seeing that stuff evolve, it's all small steps now. Just a little different piston in a right front here or there, or in a right rear. Just kind of valving trickery here and there and stuff. It's kind of small steps, the way they have the rules written and stuff, which unfortunately the small steps end up being more expensive when everything is that, when the box is that small to play in, the small steps get more expensive, which is kind of the crossroads I think that dirt racing might be in at the moment. is, I think for a long time the rule book was pretty open, and you eventually saw, Davenport Rumley coming up with some crazy stuff in 15 and 16, and then they clamped down on it, trying to keep it from getting out of control. And I think now it's almost more expensive than it ever has been, because each little jump in technology is that much more expensive because it's in such a small window.
Yeah, I have stared at that thing that Rumley calls the device for hours and still can't figure out what the hell it does.
Yeah, that was pretty tricky. I actually really enjoyed that period of racing where we were all trying to figure it out all at the same, like the dirt world as a whole was trying to figure out what these guys were doing. I thought that was a really neat period of time. And in those 2 years right there before they clamped down on the rules, there was everybody had an idea of what they were doing, and everybody had different ways to go about trying to keep up with them. There was wild race cars being built, and I kind of enjoyed that time. There was a little bit like Wild West, where we were just all kind of winging it, doing the best we could, trying to come up with spring rods and build our own floated 4-bars, what little bit we could, tell just from pictures and stuff. And it's a little sad in a way, I guess, that it's lost that that kind of openness. That's one of the things I always enjoyed about the late models. The open engines is probably the main thing that I think keeps it as cool as it is. Because when you've got, unlimited cubic inch or as much cubic inch as you can make work well in 900 horsepower, then you're never going to make the car handle perfectly. So, that stuff like that's probably what keeps it interesting.
And over the last year plus, the deck height rule has been a big bone of contention among a lot of racers. And some people are saying that it's ripe for cheating, and others are saying, well, it levels the playing field. Where do you fall on that?
I think, you can definitely look at it different ways. I think when you do it as often as when you race as often as we do, for a lot of us who are racing for a living, it really gets hard to justify pushing too hard on the limits just because getting knocked out of a race, money-wise, points-wise, is just not, it's just something you can't afford. So, the things, again, that you're looking at to try to push the envelope, it's tiny things. You really can't get away with big stuff there. So, and really, I think sometimes we way overthink the actual aero advantage of the deck height. At least personally, I feel like that. I think the more critical component of the whole system they have there is the chain limiter, the way that it's set up in this group rule. That chain limiter only having a 1-inch tall, bushing or like bump stop type of thing for compliance and electric suspension is really what's changed the handling of the cars more than anything, I think. Up until that point that they pretty much made that nationwide thing for late models, we were really experimenting pretty hard with springs and different types of bump stops, stacked springs. Like our chain limiters were getting pretty exotic, and it had a ton of travel from when the chain got tight. When you pick up the gas so they pretty much could travel as much as the car wanted to, a couple of inches, and it made a lot of grip, like a ton of grip. And I'm not so sure that in that time period where we all had pretty good chain limiters, our racing wasn't a little bit better, because the body works about the same as it's been for the last 5 years size wise. We've played moving the decks around here and there, but the general size of the car is pretty much the same. And there was a period there, I felt like in 21 and 2020, that we could race a little closer together. And I think a lot of that had to do with the chain limiter having like so much natural grip in the car that even if you got in some dirty air and split out, you still had mechanical grip to get you back in the track, and you could make some closer moves and pick different lanes than you could. Now it's the dirty air, I think, is more of an issue than it's ever been. I think because there's so little mechanical grip left in the car, it's kind of more air grip.
So are you seeing the problems with the aerodynamics even on the shorter tracks, the quarter miles and the 3/8?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm just, maybe I'm thinking about it, like overthinking it, or maybe I'm sensitive to it or something, but I swear I can feel it all the way down to the quarter mile at Fairbury. These cars are, the bodywork is big enough, and we've all fine-tuned our suspension to this droop rule, and our cars have so little travel once we get our cars into position that race good. Even at a quarter mile, I mean, you could drive, if you drive into the bottom at Fairbury, going all at 25 mile an hour or something like that, but like too close to somebody, you're gonna flat out from line. I'm like, it's the thing.
Well, we've got our own resident overthinker here, and that's Phil. He overthinks everything, especially with setup.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, welcome to the club.
I chase a 32nd of an inch on a dirt car.
Yeah, I do too. Don't worry.
So I'm going to take us off of the technical stuff a little bit from a driver's point of view. There's a lot of opinions about a high bite, heavy track that you can just mash the gas and go, or a dry slick track where I've always felt as though a dry slick track brings your drivers, lets you know who your drivers are, because you're running a 900 horsepower car, and on a dry slick track, you've got to be, in my opinion, you've got to be a real good driver. You've got to feel the car. You got to know right where the edge is. What's your opinion? What do you like better? Do you like a heavy track where you just mat the gas and go, or do you like a dry slick track that makes you be a driver?
I mean, I've kind of grown to enjoy it all. I think my runs are maybe a little bit better when there's some grip in the track, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I feel like as far as our cars and how they race is concerned, the actual racing product is probably better when it's real patchy, like when you've got some slick spots that are super slick and grippy spots that are super grippy, to where you have to make decisions, where there's consequences to driving a corner improperly. It seems like nowadays, with our cars having so much aero grip, if the track is like perfectly black, smooth, slick, top to bottom, we all end up running pretty similar speed because our cars are just kind of good, from having good aero and stuff. And unless there's a disparity in grip from one lane to the next, you don't get to really race side by side as much. So for sure, the technical side of it shows up in the slick, but I think the best racing for our cars right now are when there's, I guess the best way to put it is when there's consequences, where the risk versus reward for making moves and being in a different lane, when the risk versus reward is kind of like a big jump, like, man, I could run this top and go a lot faster, but I can also kill this car. And the bottom, like, the bottom's really good, but I can knock the bumper off on this thing in a split second because it's so close to the tires. It seems like tracks like that kind of get like really tricky to make good things happen on is when they get raced. As far as for the fans, I feel like.
Yeah, but there's no better feeling than be the first guy to jump out of line and you go, oh wait, I found something.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Feel like a smarty all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk about from the fans' point of view, tracks like that. I mean, and you commented on Fairbury earlier, where 25 miles an hour you can slide out. I mean, I think Fairbury's some of the best racing because you could drag a spoiler off the wall or bang the nose off the tires, and it's fast either way around that place.
Yeah. Fairbury is awesome. That's some of the most intense racing that you'll do as far as just the size of the track and how much action's taking place. There's almost always a couple lanes that you can search for, and trying to make speed in those lanes is tricky. That's one of those tracks where there's reward in pushing the risk envelope with your car if you're willing to do it and if you do it properly. And there's big risk if you don't. So I think that's when the racing gets really exciting.
John, do you have anything for Garrett?
I don't really have anything, but I do want to go back to his start. And I feel like he did something that the six of us would have done, is dig an old car out of the weeds and try and make it work, just to go race it.
Yeah.
Because,
We just
Garrett,
described your
if
pure
you've
stock.
Wow, see, this is how it is most of the time, Garrett.
You mean his cheater pure stock?
Yeah, we're
Not so pure stock.
nuts. No, my pure stock is pure. No, Edward Fingers is, it's as pure as it gets. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, we're just, sounds like your beginnings were just like, hey, local dirt track racer, wanted to do more. Hey, I got this car sitting out there. Let's do something with it. And yeah, that's something the six of us would have absolutely done in a heartbeat. And it would have gone one way or the other, just kind of like everything.
My first dwarf
Garrett,
car was 20 years old.
So Garrett, here's where we open it up for you. Who's helping you get to the track? Who's helping you pay your bills? Who's lending you moral support? Give your shout outs.
Yeah, I've got like the most awesome support group. Ken Roberts, first and foremost, Ken and Beth, his wife, are just the most top-notch people that you could ever hope to drive for. He's realistic as far as, that you're going to have bad nights, you're going to make mistakes, but he's also super competitive and really wants everyone to do the best they can and expects performance. So, yeah, just is everything you could hope for out of a car owner. I got to give a huge shout out to my wife, Danny. She's probably my best encourager, day in and day out. People that have been around her or watched her work. She probably outwork any one of us any day of the week. She loves being right in the thick of it and changing carburetors, change the wheels, she'll clean the radiator out, she'll change gears, she'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. And she's always got the right outlook. I feel like, nights that I struggle mentally or with big decisions or something like that, I know I can always lean on her. This year I had RC Whitwell, crew chiefing, my brother-in-law Thomas Krasinski, doing tires. My wife Danny for most of the year until she got too pregnant. We had to kick her off the road. And then my brother Dylan came along in that time period to fill in. That was really fun. And yeah, so that's the crew. That was probably the funnest year that I've had, crew-wise, people-wise, in a long time. And then everybody knows that your partners in the deal is what really makes it happen. We've got some of the coolest sponsors, Sunoco behind me, you see on the car, and Sunoco Race Fuel's a huge part of our team, and just really good, just racers first, and you can tell in the way they approach everything, and appreciate that. Ski Valley Transportation, Roll Jones out of Las Cruces, where I'm from, getting to represent him. He actually built that Motto track that they run the Wild West Shootout at now, and is just a true racer through and through. Just sports racers everywhere he can, and big part of our team. Got Low Voltage Solutions from St. Louis area, big time race fan. He's on Bobby Pierce's team as well, just a hardcore racer. Got Built-In Shocks, got Bill Sport Shop, Romer Machine and Welding, Done Right TV, Fast Shaft, Swift Springs. We got a ton of help from family and family friends. My mom's side of the family, Sim's family, helps out a bunch when they can, and there's a bunch of friends of the family, Mitchell Ranch, Titan Racing Products out of Arkansas has come on board this year, does a bunch with us, building some cool parts, and yeah, just a ton of good people. Longhorn, they work with us really, really hard to keep us up front. And yeah, just a ton of good people.
What about your social media?
Yeah.
How can people follow you or get a hold of you?
Yeah, so we got Garrett Alberson Racing, and I think it's combined Roberts Motorsports on Facebook. And we also have a Garrett Alberson website that is all linked to that same stuff, and that's our merch store as well, which I think is Garrett Alberson 58 Shopify, and all that stuff linked together.
You've been very generous with your time tonight. We appreciate you spending some time with us, shooting some stories our way, and taking our call. We're just an itty-bitty podcast. There's tens of people watching us right now, but we definitely appreciate it a lot, and we wish you best of luck next year.
Yeah, appreciate you having a goofy dirt kid from New Mexico on there.
Yeah, hey, we're all goofy dirt kids.
We're all goofy, yeah, exactly.
With that, good luck for next year. What are your plans for next year? Where are you racing at? Have you made an announcement yet?
I guess we haven't made an official announcement. Our goal definitely is to run the Lucas Oil Series again. Yeah, I feel like we're in a good position with our cars, our motors, everything we got to make a shot and make a run for that top four. So that's the goal. Try to get in there with them guys and give ourselves a chance, a championship if possible. I personally feel like our series is about as tough as it gets, and so you're going to find out what you got every year when you go up against it. So that's what we're looking forward to.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
Well, you're definitely going to have the support of us. We're going to be big fans going forward. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And
appreciate
hopefully you don't end up with our feature we call the Dirty Slider of the Week.
As long as it's for the win, right? That's all right.
They don't ever ask how. They just ask how many.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, John, can you shout out our social media?
So our socials, we got Dirty Sliders on Facebook. We got Dirty Sliders on Instagram and at Dirty Sliders on X. We're going to be putting all this out tomorrow when our episode comes out and tagging Garrett in it, so all his fans get to see how goofy we are. But yeah, watch, like, subscribe, hit all those buttons and bells like Neilden says.
All right. Thanks again, Garrett. You guys have a great night.
Yep, you guys too. Thanks for having me.
Garrett.
Yep, absolutely.
Welcome back anytime, man. We'd like having you on.